You see, one of the most misunderstood truths in life is this: view timing is everything, and divine timing is never random. People often ask, oh, why now? Why did it happen at this point in my life? But they're asking the wrong question. The real question is, why not earlier? Why didn't it come when I felt ready, when I was begging for it, when I thought I had earned it? The answer is hard to accept but impossible to argue with. Because you weren't ready. Or rather, it wasn't ready for you. When God sets a date, like August 08, 25 bell, it's not just a date marked on a calendar. It's a moment that has been in motion long before you were even aware of it. It's the culmination of everything you thought was working against you, finally working for you. Nothing about divine timing is rushed, impulsive, or reactionary. There are no accidents in the spiritual schedule. Things you considered delays were, in fact, preparations. What looked like silence was strategy. And when God says everything changes, He means it won't be subtle and it won't be delayed. We live in a culture that praises urgency. Hustle culture, fast success, instant results. But purpose is not microwavable. Purpose is slow cooked in silence, struggle, and solitude. The most important transitions in your life will rarely feel like breakthroughs when they begin. They feel more like breakdowns. It's not until you've been removed from the noise, stripped of distractions, and forced to sit in the stillness that you start to realizing, God has been working on something bigger than your feelings. You might think you missed your moment, that it passed you by while you were too heartbroken, too confused, or too stuck to act. But here's the truth. You cannot miss what is divinely timed. You can delay it through disobedience, sure. You can complicate it through doubt. But when God has marked a date, it's not subject to human error. His timeline is protected. That's why August 08 is not just symbolic. It's sacred. Let me be clear. God does not speak in vague wishes. When He says everything changes, He is speaking to the structure of your reality, not just your mood. He's talking about your relationships, your mindset, your calling, your identity, your confidence, your circle, your direction. This is not a motivational moment. It's a complete shift in your alignment, from survival mode to stability, from instability to impact, from invisibility to influence. But here's the paradox: even though it's a divine setup, it still requires human cooperation. God can shift the season, but if you're not in position, you'll miss what's already been released. So many people wait for confirmation before they take action. But what if the act of preparing, is the confirmation? What if God has already said yes, but He's waiting for you to act like it? This is why timing is sacred. Not because it waits for you, but because it includes you. If you're obedient, when August 08 arrives, the only question will be, were you ready? Or were you still watching? Did you prepare or did you postpone? Because when divine timing arrives, hesitation can be costly. Here's what I want you to walk away with. You don't need more time, you need more clarity. The shift has already been scheduled. God said everything changes, not everything you might. So don't spend another moment doubting if it's real. It is. The question is, are you finally ready to move like it? People often mistake waiting for wasting. They look at the seasons where nothing seems to move. When progress is invisible, relationships are fading, finances are uncertain, and confidence is low, and they assume something must be wrong. They start believing the lie that delay is denial. But here's the truth: what feels like nothing is often the beginning of everything. The silence isn't God ignoring you. It's God preparing you. There's a kind of growth that only happens in the shadows. Before God blesses publicly, He often breaks you privately. And that breaking is not punishment. It's positioning. You weren't being held back. You were being held together. It's just that the process didn't look like progress. While you were frustrated, He was forming the foundation. While you were doubting your worth, He was refining your wisdom. The delay wasn't a rejection, it was a recalibration. And if you're honest with yourself, You'll realize that had it come earlier, it would have crushed you. You weren't mentally anchored enough, spiritually grounded enough, emotionally sober enough. Think about it. If the opportunity had shown up while you were still healing from betrayal, still seeking validation, still addicted to being needed, would you have stewarded it well? Or would you have self-sabotaged like you did before? See, God's delays are not emotional decisions. They're strategic protections. He's not interested in giving you something that will outgrow your character. And this is the uncomfortable part most people miss. Sometimes the not yet is the deepest form of love He can offer. There's a reason August 08, 2025 is marked. It's not random. It's not hype. It's not another feel-good moment on your timeline. It's the moment where preparation meets prophecy. And if you've been in a long season of silence, it's not because you've been forgotten. It's because your foundation had to be built deeper. The greater the structure, the deeper the roots. Some people received what they asked for too quickly, and you saw what happened. They couldn't keep it. They lost themselves in the exposure they begged for. Because the spotlight will always reveal what discipline hides. The delay was never about making you wait longer. It was about making you last longer. But here's the catch. Delay only builds destiny if you engage with it correctly. If you spend your waiting season complaining, comparing, or compromising, you prolong what could have already arrived. Because delay becomes denial when we waste it. If you treat the waiting like punishment, you miss its potential. But if you treat it like preparation, you walk into the next chapter with clarity, strength, and spiritual precision. Ask yourself, who did I become during the delay? Did I mature emotionally or just grow bitter? Did I learn to think for myself, or am I still outsourcing my worth to other people's opinions? Did I master self-control, or am I still a slave to my impulses? This is where your real progress lies, not in what changed around you, but in what changed within you. August 08 is not the beginning of change. It's the revealing of what's been changing all along. It's the moment when everything God built in the dark finally steps into the light. And if you've done the inner work, if you've held on through the silence, then this shift won't surprise you. It will confirm you. So don't curse the delay. Don't despise the stillness. Everything you thought was working against you was actually working on you. And now, it's almost time. One of the most painful truths you'll ever face is this: before God elevates you, He separates you. It's not punishment. It's not cruelty. It's design. And it's the part of the process that most people resist, because separation feels like abandonment. It feels like loss. But what if that separation wasn't happenings to you? What if it was happenings for you? We all say we want change, a better life, healthier relationships, real purpose. But we forget that change demands cost. You can't carry everyone and everything into your next season. Elevation isn't a group activity, it's a personal calling. And some people, no matter how familiar or emotionally significant, simply weren't meant to survive your transformation. They were chapters, not the conclusion. Look back on your life. Think about who you had around you during your most unstable moments. Think about the people you clung to, not because they added to you, but because they distracted you. Sometimes the people you love the most are the exact ones keeping you anchored to an identity you've outgrown. That's the danger of comfort zones. They often come dressed as loyalty. God's plan for elevation always includes isolation, not to hurt you, but to strip away what's unnecessary. When you're too surrounded, you can't hear clearly. You can't think clearly. And most importantly, you can't grow freely. Growth often starts with subtraction, not addition. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you stop grieving things that were never meant to last. It's not just people either. Sometimes it's habits, environments, ways of thinking, emotional addictions. We all have things we cling to that feel familiar but are quietly draining us. And when God gets ready to shift you, He won't just challenge your circumstances. He'll confront your attachments. Because anything you're not willing to release becomes an anchor, and you can't rise with anchors in your hands. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Some of you are still holding on to people, patterns, and perspectives that have expired, and you're wondering why nothing's changing. You're asking God to elevate you while refusing to detach from what's keeping you low. It doesn't work like that. Separation precedes elevation. Always. But don't mistake separation for loneliness. Isolation in the spiritual sense is preparation. It's the sacred space where clarity is born, where identity is solidified, where your voice returns. It's where your self-worth detaches from applause, and your confidence becomes internal instead of circumstantial. If you're in that season now, where friends have faded, where opportunities have dried up, where silence has become the norm, don't panic. That's not the end. That's alignment. On August 8, 2025, many of you will step into a version of yourself you've never seen before. Not because something magical happens on that date, but because the separation you've endured until now was not wasted. It was refinement. The people who ghosted you, the relationships that fell apart, the dreams that collapsed. They didn't break you. They cleared the path. They removed the noise. And they taught you that what feels like rejection is often redirection. So stop chasing closure. Stop forcing what has expired. Let who and what needs to leave, leave. Because nothing God has planned for your future depends on something He already removed from your present. We talk a lot about faith. We wear it like a badge. We post about it. We quote it. We even pray with it. But here's the reality most people won't admit. What we often call faith is just passive hope dressed up in religious language. But real faith is not soft. It's not poetic. It's not something you say, it's something you dog. And if your actions don't align with the belief you claim to hold, then what you have isn't faith, it's fantasy. Faith isn't waiting for a sign. It is the sign. It's the decision to move, even when there's no evidence, no applause, and no confirmation. Faith shows up when logic says sit down. It stands when fear screams surrender. It prepares for the breakthrough before the door opens. You see, God doesn't respond to emotion. He responds to alignment. And alignment requires action. Too many people are waiting for everything to be perfect before they begin. They want the full plan, the guaranteed outcome, the approval of others. But divine timing doesn't operate on comfort. It responds to obedience. When God says, everything changes, He's not handing you a miracle. He's handing you a mirror. He's asking, are you ready to act like what you prayed for is already real? If you believe change is coming on August 8 and 2025, if you truly believe that's the shift, then your life right now should reflect that belief. Faith means showing up before you're seen. It means building when no one is watching. It means speaking truth when it's inconvenient. Faith is preparing for what hasn't manifested yet, because spiritually it already exists, and preparation is proof of belief. There's a psychological principle that's often misunderstood. The brain responds to what it believes is real. It doesn't distinguish between imagination and experience. That's why mindset matters. When you prepare for something, your mind and body begin aligning to receive it. You begin to make decisions from the place you're going to, not just the place you're in. But if you stay passive, waiting for clarity to land in your lap, you'll miss what's already in motion. Let's be honest. Many of us don't have a faith problem. We have a discipline problem. You're praying for transformation, but your habits contradict it. You want favor, but your routine reflects fear. You ask for the next level, but you haven't mastered the current one. Faith without structure is wasted energy. That's why preparation matters. Because preparation isn't just practical. It's prophetic. God's not asking you to figure everything out. He's asking you to show up, to act like you believe what He said. That's what makes August 8 meaningful. Not the date itself, but the demand it places on your faith today. The shift isn't for spectators, it's for those who had the courage to prepare in silence, without applause, without certainty, without shortcuts. Don't mistake stillness for inaction, and don't confuse rest with laziness. But if you've been passive, if you've been using waiting on God as an excuse to avoid responsibility, it's time to get honest. Faith isn't supposed to feel safe. It's supposed to stretch you. Growth requires discomfort, and belief without movement is just another way to stay stuck. So here's the real question, Abayu. If you truly believe everything changes, what are you doing today to prepare for it? Because when the opportunity arrives, it's too late to get ready. Faith prepares before the shift, not after. There's a part of the journey no one talks about. The part where you go silent. Not because you don't care. Not because you've given up, but because something deeper is happening beneath the surface. You stop explaining. You stop proving. You stop arguing for your worth. And it's in that silence that everything starts to shift. Not around you, but within you. People will misread that silence. They'll think you've disappeared. They'll assume you're lost, maybe even broken. But silence isn't weakness. It's spiritual discipline. It's the decision to withdraw from noise long enough to reconnect with clarity. And that's exactly why it's powerful. Because when God wants to refine your voice, He begins by removing your need to use it. You don't get stronger by speaking louder. You get stronger by learning when to not speak at all. When to let the silence work on your behalf. Because there's a psychological truth most people miss in. The quieter you become, the more people feel your presence. Not because of what you're doing, but because of what you've stopped doing. Explaining, chasing, performing, pleasing. Think about it. The most unforgettable people in your life are not the loudest. They're the ones whose absence spoke volumes. The ones who didn't have to announce they were done. They just stopped showing up. They stopped engaging in cycles. They chose peace over pettiness. And that decision created a vacuum, an energetic silence that echoed louder than any speech. Silence forces others to face what your words used to protect them from. As long as you're talking, defending, explaining, you're still trying to control the narrative. But when you go silent, you surrender control. And that's when accountability begins. That's when people start asking questions. That's when they feel the absence of your presence and start re-evaluating their behavior, not because you told them to, but because the space made it impossible to avoid. And here's where it becomes spiritual. God often speaks loudest through your silence. Not everything sacred is meant to be shouted. Some of the most profound shifts in your identity happen in private, away from the crowd. And when you return, you're different. Not louder, just clearer, more focused, less reactive, more discerning. You don't talk the same because you don't need to. You're not trying to be heard anymore. You know who you are. That's why silence isn't just a break from the noise. It's preparation for the moment your voice finally returns. And this time, it carries weight. Because now, when you speak, you're not talking from insecurity, you're speaking from alignment, from revelation, from truth earned in solitude. And people can feel the difference. They don't just hear you, they feel you. By August 08, 2025, many of you won't just be stepping into new opportunities. You'll be speaking from a completely different posture. Your voice will have authority, not volume, power, not noise. You won't have to over-explain or seek validation. Why? Because the version of you that emerges from this silence has nothing to prove. That's the power of divine stillness. So if you're in that silent season right now, if you've pulled back, gone inward, disconnected, trust it. Don't rush to break it. Don't feel pressure to explain it. Let it do its work. Let it sharpen you. Let it strip you of everything that diluted your power. Because when you return, you will not be the same. There's a turning point in every journey where something clicks. Not externally, but internally. And after that moment, You no longer beg to be seen. You no longer chase recognition, validation, or applause. You become so rooted in who you are and what you carry that being noticed becomes a consequence, not a goal. That's what happens after the shift. Why after August 08, 2025, you won't just show up, you'll be unignorable. But let's be honest. Up until now, you've probably spent a lot of time to prove your value. You've explained yourself to people who had no intention of understanding you. You've downplayed your gifts to fit into places that were never meant to hold your potential. You've poured energy into proving you belong. In friendships, jobs, relationships, and rooms that couldn't even recognize your depth. That season ends now. You don't rise by shouting louder. You rise by becoming more aligned. And future you want. The reason so many people feel invisible isn't because they're not talented. It's because they've been misaligned, giving their best to the wrong spaces, using their brilliance to build someone else's vision while neglecting their own, and then wondering why no one claps. But the truth is, when you're out of place, your presence loses power. The shift we're stepping into is not about ego. It's about essence. This isn't about becoming louder. It's about becoming undeniable. And when God says everything changes, it means how people perceive you, how doors open for you, how your name carries weight even when you're not in the room. Not because you forced your way in, but because you finally aligned with who you were always meant to be. There's a psychological principle at work here. People don't respond to needness, they respond to certainty. The more you chase, the more you signal that you don't believe you deserve. But when you move with quiet conviction, when your actions align with a deep internal knowing, you become magnetic. Influence doesn't come from trying harder, it comes from becoming clearer. And clarity, ironically, is what makes you impossible to ignore. Because the world is full of noise, people talking, posturing, pretending. But when someone walks into a room with real clarity, they cut through that noise like a blade. They don't demand attention. They command it. That's where you're going. This isn't about popularity. This is about purpose. It's about walking into spaces not asking, do you see me? But stating, oh, I know who I am. And once you reach that level of self-awareness, everything around you has no choice but to adjust. People either rise to meet you or fall away. Opportunities begin to appear, not because you begged for them, but because you prepared for them. And here's what's beautiful, you won't have to announce the shift. Your life will announce it. Your posture will say what your mouth doesn't. The way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you say no to what no longer fits. All of it will tell the world, dog, this person is not who they used to be. So if you've been overlooked, underestimated, or misunderstood, don't waste time trying to fix that narrative. Let the results speak. Let your growth make the noise. The version of you that emerges on August 08 won't have to chase the spotlight. You'll be the light. And the world will have no choice but to adjust its focus.